Have you ever prayed with all your might and heard nothing but silence? Not a peaceful silence, a heavy silence, the kind that tightens your chest and brings up a question you're ashamed to admit. Is God listening to me? This feeling is more common than it seems, and if you've experienced it or are experiencing it now, you need to know that you're not alone. Quite the opposite. There are moments in life when we do everything right. We search, we wait, and even then, nothing. No clear sign, no visible answer. The sky seems closed, and the soul begins to waver. It is precisely in these moments that faith in God during difficult times is truly tested. Not when everything is going well, not when answers come quickly, but when the silence stretches on and doubt begins to knock at the door of the heart. And doubt doesn't come alone. It brings company, fear, a feeling of abandonment, the impression that perhaps God has other plans and you are not among them. But here's something that changes everything. God's silence is not God's absence. Throughout the Bible, the men and women who most transformed history were precisely those who learned to trust God even without an answer. Not because they were spiritual superheroes, but because at some point they chose not to let silence have the last word. This is true faith, not the faith that only works when everything makes sense, but the faith that remains steadfast when nothing seems to make any sense at all. And that's what we're going to talk about today, about how to trust God in silence, that silence that confuses, that weighs us down, that raises questions. I'm going to show you the secret that few understand about true faith, something hidden in the subtext of biblical stories, but which, when you see it, completely changes the way you live and hope. And at the end of this video, remember this. I'm going to share a verse that has the power to reposition everything within you. A word that isn't mine, it's God's. And it was written for a moment exactly like yours. So stay, because what seems to be the end of your faith may be the beginning of something you can't even imagine yet. But before we get there, I need to ask you a question that perhaps no one has asked you before. What if the problem isn't a lack of faith, but rather how you understand what faith truly is? The human mind was made to solve problems. It analyzes, compares, calculates, and looks for patterns. And that is a gift, but that same gift can become the greatest obstacle to faith. Because faith doesn't work like an equation. It doesn't follow the logic of cause and effect that our brains love so much. Trusting God without proof goes against everything we've learned since childhood. See first, believe later. And that's where the conflict lies. The mind says, show me so I can believe. Faith says, believe so you can see. Believing in the invisible spiritual seems absurd to those who live only by what their eyes can see. And perhaps you are in that place now, wanting to believe, but waiting for a sign to validate your faith before truly surrendering it. But there's a story in the Bible that breaks that logic in such a powerful, real, and human way that it's impossible not to see yourself in it. Moses was born at a time when his very existence was illegal. Pharaoh had ordered the death of all newborn Hebrew boys. His mother, desperate and at the same time guided by an inexplicable faith, placed him in a basket and cast him into the Nile River, into the hands of God and the current. He grew up inside the Egyptian palace, a prince on the outside, a Hebrew on the inside, a divided identity, a life built on a living contradiction. And when he tried to take justice into his own hands, he killed an Egyptian and fled to the desert as a fugitive. 40 years in the middle of nowhere, tending sheep, far from everything he once was. Logic would dictate, this man is finished. This story is over. But it was precisely in the desert, in the place of forgetfulness, that God appeared in a burning bush that was not consumed. And he called Moses by name. The mission God gave him was humanly absurd. To return to Egypt, confront the most powerful pharaoh in the world, and free more than 2 million slaves. Moses responded with the most honest of objections. "Who am I to go?" Exodus 3:11. It wasn't false modesty, it was human logic speaking louder. He was an old pastor with a past as a fugitive who even had difficulty speaking. Trusting God without proof at that moment meant going against all common sense. And God did not respond by giving Moses a list of qualifications. He responded with a promise: "I will be with you." Exodus 3:12. Not, "I'm going to give you skills." Not, "I'm going to make you eloquent." Just, "I will be with you." The deeper meaning of believing without seeing is evident here. Moses had no way of knowing how it would end. There was no map, no visible guarantee, no plan B. There was only a voice that called and a choice that needed to be made, to trust or to retreat. He went, and the Red Sea parted, and an entire people crossed on dry land, what seemed to be an impossible barrier. Human logic would have stayed on the sidelines, waiting for better conditions. Spiritual faith entered the water and witnessed the impossible happen. To believe without seeing is not naivete. It is the bravest decision a human being can make. And if there's a secret behind all this courage, it's closer than you think. Everyone wants to have faith, but few understand what true faith in God really is. There is a shallow version of faith that most people know, the kind that appears when everything seems favorable, when prayer is answered quickly, when the signs are clear. This faith is real, but it is not the faith that transforms lives. The faith that transforms is different. It is born in a place that most of us avoid. The secret of true faith is hidden in a simple yet revolutionary phrase. Faith is the assurance of what is hoped for and the conviction of what is not seen. Hebrews 11:1. Read it again slowly. Certainty about what is expected, conviction about what is not seen. It's not a feeling, it's not an emotion that comes and goes. It's an anchor. It's a posture of the soul that chooses to trust before understanding, to believe before seeing, to rest before receiving the answer. And that's the point few people reach. True faith doesn't depend on signs, it precedes signs. When you pray expecting a sign before believing, you're putting the cart before the horse, as the old saying goes. Faith isn't a reaction to a miracle. Faith is what prepares the ground for the miracle to happen. Jesus said to the Father who was asking for his Son's healing, "Everything is possible for those who believe." And the Father responded with one of the most honest prayers in the entire Bible: "I believe, help my unbelief." Marcos 9:23-24. This prayer is for you. Perhaps today your faith isn't perfect. Perhaps it's trembling, full of cracks, mixed with doubt. That's okay. God doesn't demand perfection, he demands honesty. Faith and trust in God don't begin when you resolve all your doubts. They begin when you decide to trust even with those doubts. When you say, "I don't understand everything, but I trust those who understand what I can't see," that's the secret. It's not in a ritual. It's not in a magic formula. It's in a daily, silent, courageous decision. And when that decision becomes a lifestyle, something starts to change. Not always the way you expected, not always in the time you planned, but it changes. And in a way that goes beyond what you can imagine right now. But knowing the secret isn't enough. The next step is learning to live it in practice, especially when everything around you tries to make you give up. Knowing about faith and living by faith are two completely different things. It's like knowing that swimming is possible and actually getting into the water. You can read all the books on swimming in the world, but the moment your feet leave the ground, your body reacts instinctively and instinct screams, "Hold something, don't sink." Living by faith and not by circumstances is exactly that, learning not to panic when your feet lose their footing. And this learning doesn't happen all at once. It's a process. It's a path of daily choices where you train your soul to react differently to what your eyes see. How to have faith even without seeing begins with the small decisions of everyday life. The morning you wake up anxious and choose to pray before checking your phone. The moment bad news arrives and you take a deep breath before spiraling out of control. In the silence of waiting, when you choose to trust instead of controlling. It's not weakness. It's the strongest thing there is. Peter understood this in the most literal way possible. When Jesus walked on the water and called Peter to get out of the boat, Peter went. As long as he kept his eyes on Jesus, he walked. It was only when he looked at the waves, at the circumstances, which began to sink. And Jesus held him and asked, "Why did you doubt?" Matthew 14:31. This question was not a cruel reprimand. It was a gentle lesson. You are more capable than you think. The problem wasn't the storm. It was where you were looking. Learning to walk in the invisible is learning to redirect your gaze, not ignoring reality. Peter saw the waves for real. They were real. But it's about choosing in whom you anchor your trust in the face of this reality. Faith in God and hope are not an escape from difficulties. They are a different way of overcoming them, with the certainty that the one who called you to leave the boat will not let you sink. And if you're in that process right now, learning, making mistakes, asking for help, going back, know that this is exactly what faith looks like in real life. It's not glamorous, it's human, it's daily, it's courageous in a simple and powerful way. Before continuing, if this content is touching your heart, subscribe to the channel and leave a like. This helps this message reach more people who also need to hear it today. Because what comes next is the moment when everything changes. When faith leaves the realm of learning and enters the realm of the impossible. There is a moment, a turning point, an instant when a person stops bargaining with God and decides to truly trust. And it is at that moment that the invisible begins to move. I'm not talking about magic. I'm talking about something the Bible records repeatedly in different ways, in different stories, with different people. A pattern that cannot be ignored. When faith acts, God acts. Jesus said, "If you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, 'Move from here to there,' and it will move. Nothing will be impossible for you." Matthew 17:20. A mustard seed is tiny. You can barely see it. But Jesus didn't say faith needs to be big. He said it needs to be real. A small but genuine faith has more power than a big faith that is only an appearance. The faith that moves mountains is not the faith of those who never doubted. It is the faith of those who doubted, chose to trust anyway, and remained standing. Strengthening faith in God begins with a decision that seems small, but has eternal weight. The decision not to give up. David faced Goliath. Everyone else saw an impossible giant to defeat. David saw an enemy who dared to challenge the living God. The difference wasn't in the size of the sword, it was in the size of the confidence. And Goliath fell, not by David's strength, by David's faith. But here's something that needs to be said carefully. Faith is not a formula for getting what you want. It is an attitude of surrender to what God knows is best. Sometimes the mountain doesn't move the way you asked. Sometimes you are moved beyond the mountain. Sometimes the miracle isn't the healing you asked for. It's the peace that surpasses understanding, that sustains you in the midst of pain. Philippians 4:7. And that too is faith that moves mountains. The inner mountains are the hardest to move. The verse about faith and trust that you may know, but need to hear again today, is in Isaiah 41:10. "Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." God didn't promise a path without storms. He promised His presence in the midst of them, and that presence changes everything. But the question remains, what is the reward for those who reach the other side of this journey? What awaits those who have decided to trust until the end? That's on hold for now. You've made it this far, and that already says something about you. Because this kind of message isn't for those looking for shortcuts. It's for those who are willing to trust even when it hurts. For those who chose to stand tall, even with trembling knees. And now I need to tell you what the Bible promises for these people. Hebrews 11 is called by many the Hall of Fame of Faith. In it, the Bible lists men and women who lived by faith. Abraham, Sarah, Moses, Rahab, among others. People who set out without knowing where they were going, who waited for promises that would take decades, who faced the impossible without visible guarantees. And the text says something impressive. All these people died in faith, not having received the things promised, but having seen them and greeted them from a distance. Hebrews 11:13. Some did not see complete fulfillment in their lifetime, but they lived with the certainty of what they could not see, and that certainty transformed them. The reward for those who trust without seeing is not always immediate, but it is real, and it happens in layers. First comes peace. That strange, inexplicable peace that appears in the midst of the storm and makes no sense to those looking from the outside. It is the peace that Paul described from prison, not despite the chains, but within them. Then comes security, the profound certainty that you are not alone, that there is a purpose greater than what you can see now. Faith and trust in God don't free you from pain, they free you from despair. And then comes something that only those who have lived it understand, the purpose. When you look back and begin to see God's hand in the places where you only saw silence. When you realize that the waiting that seemed like a waste was in fact a preparation. Trusting in God even without an answer is not a spiritual defeat. It is the greatest proof of maturity a soul can demonstrate. And the true faith in God that you cultivated during those dark times, it becomes the most solid foundation of your life, because it was tested, because it endured, because it chose to continue. And now, as promised from the beginning, the moment for the final revelation has arrived. It's not a formula, it's not a 5-step method, it's one word, just one. Written by a man who suffered so much that he had every right to give up, and yet he still wrote this. Now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us, to him be glory. Ephesians 3:20-21. Infinitely more than all we ask or think. This means that what God has prepared for you is beyond the capacity of your imagination to grasp right now. You are praying for one thing. God is preparing something that your mind doesn't yet have words to describe. This is the reward for those who trust without seeing. Not just what was asked for, but infinitely more. So if you are in silence, waiting, in doubt, don't give up. The invisible is moving, and what comes through faith, it goes beyond everything you can see now. If this message touched you today, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Comment below what resonated with you. Subscribe to the channel to continue this journey of faith together, because true faith is not a destination. It's a journey, and you don't have to walk it alone. God sees you, God hears you, and He is working even in the silence, believe it.